straight into your talk.
Well, yeah, thank you so much, Lisa. Before I start with that, I'd like to say hello to all the participants of today's meeting. But before starting, I must say that you probably got an impression why the system in the European Parks Academy works so well, because we always had, and we still have this wonderful support. Everything is organized. Lisa and Romana are taking care. It's really that usually we don't even have the feeling that we are in the middle of something that has been organized in Klagenfurt, because everything works really so perfect. So I think this is an additional point in scoring the points for your decision to join the European Parks Academy. So thank you, E.C.O team, for all the support in the past, but also in the future. Just a couple of words about myself. I will start my introduction by telling you that I'm actually wearing at least two hats in this exercise. I used to be the director of a protected area in Slovenia. It is the Sečovlje Salina Nature Park. It's a beautiful area along the Adriatic coast, and it's traditional salina, where salt is still produced and harvested in the traditional way. So this was my my occupation for the last 15 years, and I'm engaged with the international conservation, let's say, at least since 1994. So Lisa was right. Yes, we are old. I was invited by the IUCN to coordinate the action plan for protected areas in Europe, which was called the Parks for Life. And since then, I work closely with the IUCN, and in the year 2012, I think I became one of the vice chairs of the IUCN World Commission on Protected Areas. So I'm the vice chair for Europe. In addition to that, I might add that I'm trained as the civil engineer. So I have basic training on engineering, and my previous career was focused on wetland restoration. So I designed some projects on wetland, on restoring wetlands and rivers. And of course, I already decided to study civil engineering and hydrology because I wanted somehow to help nature, to transfer nature back to its original state. Just to add, yeah, my links to more, let's say, biological part of the science are half professional and amateur. So I used to be a bird watcher back in 14th century, or a long time ago, but I'm still I'm getting back, so I'm keeping my boots wet now. And I did my post graduate studies on nature conservation and on protected area systems. So just for you to know, this is my usual way. I always enjoy when I can interact with people, those who are coming to this kind of seminars. So it's good that we know each other, and I would really, I'm looking forward already now to meet as many as possible of you in person next year, hopefully next year in Klagenfurt. So I was thinking for today, I didn't prepare a special a PowerPoint presentation, which is probably the first time that I didn't do so, because I really wanted to be a kind of more less formal and more open as a kind of discussion. And in my presentation, I was thinking to provide you with some insight into the work and organization of the IUCN, so the International Union for Conservation of Nature, and to highlight especially the work of the one of the IUCN commissions, which is called the IUCN World Commission on Protected Areas. So by saying that, I would like to explain why do we think that it's so important, and why do we think that European Parks Academy is a kind of a higher standard training, or even better to say, even coaching opportunity for protected area professionals. And secondly, then I will switch from the IUCN perspective to one of the themes that we foresaw for the program of this year, or hopefully now for 2021. So a kind of explanation and relations between the national protected area system and the very particular network of ecologically important sites in Europe that is called Natura 2000. And for that later part, when I was looking at the list of the registered participants for today, it's, of course, it's very difficult to talk about the Natura 2000 for three different groups of participants. In the first group are those of you who live in the European Union countries, and you are already, and your countries already designated Natura 2000 sites. Then there is quite a large group of participants who are coming from the European Union candidate countries or accession countries, where Natura 2000 is still to be established. And then it's the third group, those of you who are out of Europe, but you might be interested to learn about these very particular conservation initiatives that, for sure, the biggest network of protected and conserved areas in the world. So if I start with the IUCN, IUCN is, of course, the world's biggest conservation organization. I think that the most important part to understand how this big organization works is that we have a combination, both in terms on who are the members, and a combination how this organization works. So the members of the IUCN are governmental, but also non-governmental groups, which makes a unique combination of two very important set of players in the field of conservation. And perhaps you might be interested to to hear, but IUCN is the only environmental organization with a permanent seat in the United Nations General Assembly. So IUCN is also listed as one of the participants of the United Nations General Assembly. So in other words, it has a voice. So IUCN is generally addressing three main fields of interest and work. So first one is, broadly speaking, conservation. Second one is equity and human rights. And the third one is the sustainable use of natural resources. So if you are interested on the global policy on the issues of conservation or sustainable use, then you probably should first look at the IUCN best practice or policy documents. As I said, the organization is very special also in its internal organizational scheme, because it is composed by, as I said, by the members, by the council. So it is also a kind of, let's say, a leading or leading body. And the third and very, very important part of the IUCN are the volunteers. And these are volunteers who commit themselves to help in different issues related to conservation and sustainable use and equity. These volunteers are members of 6 IUCN commissions. These commissions are dealing with the environmental law, with communication and education, with ecosystem management, with species survival, and of course also with protected areas. And the Commission on Protected Areas is called the World Commission on Protected Areas. For sure, you all know about the IUCN. If not by others, there is a very well-known product that is produced by the IUCN and its expert base. It is the red list of endangered, let's say, species, but now we have also other red lists on endangered ecosystems, and even further it goes to habitats. Now, recently, the new initiative, or the new, let's say, the new paradigm in the IUCN is also not only to point out the bad things, so the red list, the endangered species, the endangered habitats, but also to celebrate good things and good examples. And these are called the green lists. So, and for us, for this group, and also for the European Parks Academy, of course, the very important green initiative is the IUCN Green List of protected and conserved areas, where those protected areas that are well run, they can get a kind of recognition so that they apply and they fulfill the standards of good management, which is called the IUCN Green List. WCPA, World Commission on Protected Areas, has over 2,500 members, experts. So members of the Commission are not organizations, but individuals, experts. And in Europe, as Lisa already mentioned, there are more than 600. Actually, now recently, we are more than 700 already members of the Commission, so experts on protected areas who are willing to contribute their knowledge and expertise for the benefit protected areas and nature. World Commission on Protected Areas actually has a very simple mission or objectives. So WCPA is trying to support comprehensive and well-managed network of protected areas across the globe. What are the activities? How do we work? Actually, WCPA is mainly providing an advice to different protected area initiatives, problems, but also is preparing the global protected area policy and thinking. So among the very recent teams that we are now working is to evaluate the impact of the COVID-19 to protected areas on one hand, and also to showcase that actually, again, well-preserved nature will probably one of the most important contributions to fight against this, at least globally, the consequences of the corona virus. Sorry. When I say that WCPA is providing an advice, we should know that protected area, the process of establishment and management of protected areas and conserved areas and the systems of protected areas can actually be divided in 4 main steps. E.C.O. produced also a kind of guidelines on these steps. So I will just summarize those 4 main, let's say, chapters or pillars. The first one, of course, in the process is identification, which includes the design of protected areas. Then we have the process of assessment of the IUCN protected area category and standards that have to be applied to each of those protected areas, which includes the evaluation on what are the best protected area category that should be applied for a certain area. And then we have the very wide and again very comprehensive chapter or pillar, which is called management. Here we have the questions about the management and business plans for protected areas, the whole issue of capacity building for protected area professionals, where again European Parks Academy has an important role. Then we have more practically, so what are the management interventions to maintain the objectives of protected areas, which are always related to protection of biodiversity, ecological integrity, but also, of course, of involvement of people, of stakeholders, and especially local communities. Then we are talking here under the chapter of management, we are talking about the sustainable use of natural resources, and also how to outreach or how to involve stakeholders and public into the management of protected areas. And the last pillar is monitoring and evaluation of management, where we have, let's say, the monitoring of the biodiversity or social economics and similar elements. And of course, we have the monitoring of the reaching of the protected area standards. So you will see that one of the most important characteristics of the European Parks Academy is that we are taking care that IUCN protected area standards and related categories of protected areas are actually the starting point for the preparation of the program for the academy. So here we believe that we can offer you an added value, because one thing is sure and has been demonstrated in the last 3 years. We can select and bring the best experts on particular topic on protected and conserved area management into this academy, so into EPA. And this, I would say, is really something where we can distinguish the academy from similar courses, and that's why we believe that we can also offer, let's say, really the highest standards here. And the second thing is the participants of EPA have the opportunity really to interact, to engage very closely with the best WCPA or IUCN experts on particular topics. So the participants are encouraged to bring their own problems, case studies, examples from their own environment. And because the academy really is not something to start at 10 o'clock in the morning and then at 2 o'clock we all leave. No, it's different, because participants really work and live together for those days. They also the speakers and the lecturers are with them most of the time. So there is a unique opportunity to interact with those experts, and this provides additional values, I think, for the academy. Yeah, I think I still have a couple of minutes to go now further into one of the themes that will be presented at the next EPA. We are hoping to do it this year. So it is this famous network, which is called the Natura 2000 network. Of course, as I said, some of you know this network well. Some of you are learning about it because you will have to apply it in the next couple of years if you're in Europe. And for others, I think it is very interesting to get deeper into the approach to conservation, which was somehow, let's say, invented by the European Commission, and it is now running, I would say, still quite successfully and efficiently in the European Union. So if we talk about protected areas, of course, we know that these are fundamental areas for safeguarding species and habitats, so biodiversity, ecological processes and systems, geodiversity, cultural landscapes, and of course, improving the stewardship of natural resources in those particular sites that we call protected areas. So the first question that we need to address when talking about Natura 2000 and protected areas is, are Natura 2000 areas protected areas by IUCN definition per se or not? Actually, the experience and several studies done by experts in different countries, we can conclude that, of course, Natura 2000 areas are part of the protected and conserved area national systems, for sure. But there are some particular cases when some Natura 2000 sites would not qualify as IUCN protected area. I'll just give you one or two examples just for you to know. So Natura 2000 sites are also designated inside of towns. If you have a, for example, you have a endangered bat or bird population in some of the towns or cities, and even if this is completely urban environment, this can also be designated as a Natura 2000 site, while probably this would not qualify as a protected area according to the IUCN criteria, which are a bit more strict in terms of the natural environment. But these are just some examples where we should not lose the general general overview and perception. So Natura 2000 sites can be easily considered also as protected areas. In some countries, they are certainly part of the system of protected areas, like in let's say in Bulgaria. Natura 2000 sites are in their legislation. They are, of course, a part of protected areas, while in some other countries, like in Finland, they strictly distinguish between protected areas like national parks, nature reserves, wilderness area, and so on, protected landscapes, and Natura 2000 sites. But in principle, almost 70% of Natura 2000 sites are in protected areas or covered by protected areas. So what is then the difference? Why are we separating this Natura 2000 sites from other protected areas? I think that there are several issues which distinguish the two categories, but I would like to focus just on two of them. The first one is the process how Natura 2000 areas are established, because the creation of Natura 2000 network is based on the two European Union directives, and the European Union directives has the same importance as national laws. So if there is a directive which is agreed and valid at the European Union level, it has to be transferred directly into the national legislations and law. So directive at the European Union level is equal to the law at the national level. But you cannot, the main difference in establishing the two entities, so the Natura 2000 sites and the protected areas, lies in the fact that if you want to create or establish, and the country has to do it because the European Union country obliged itself to designate these areas. So the key difference lies in the criteria. You cannot establish Natura 2000 site if it does not fulfill certain very, let's say, quite strictly defined criteria on the certain species or habitats that have to be present on that area, and the number or the population of this species that also has to be present in that area. If you want to designate a nationally protected area like a nature reserve or even a national park, you don't have this kind of criteria. If somebody thinks that the national authority responsible for conservation or protected areas thinks that an area deserves to be protected because of the natural beauty, for example, it can simply become a national park, a landscape park, or whatever. So that's one difference. So Natura sites are the process of establishing of the Natura 2000 sites is it's much more strict. So actually, if there is a Natura 2000 site, we know that this site is really important for conservation at the European Union level. That's a really important difference. And the second the second main difference, there are others, but I'll just focus on these two, is the question of governance and also management of these areas. Of course, if Natura 2000 sites are part of the nationally designated area, like a national park, then we have also the authority directly responsible for management of this area. In almost all cases, if there is Natura 2000 site within, let's say, national park, then the national park authority manages also the Natura 2000 site. And it has to manage it in a way that the favorable conservation status of targeted species and habitats in this site is at least maintained, if not improved. But as we said before, so there might be areas that are not protected at the national level, but qualify as Natura 2000 site because of the numerical criteria of the percentage of the population of the target species or the extent of the certain habitats that are specially mentioned in the Birds or the Habitats Directive. So actually this means that lots of Natura 2000 sites that are not part of nationally protected areas, actually often they don't have a management authority in place, but that the management is somehow entrusted either, let's say, if the site is in forest, so that the organization that manages the forest have to take care and to manage also the Natura 2000 site, or if this is in the, let's say, in the agricultural landscape where the land is owned by farmers, so those farmers actually, with support of some national institutions, but actually they are responsible for management of these Natura 2000 sites. And here comes the niche for our seminar. We would like to bring some expertise and some experience by those who are managers of these Natura 2000 sites. So to demonstrate models of good practices in management of Natura 2000 sites, and therefore also in management of protected areas if the Natura sites are part of that protected areas. So this will be the focus of our program for the next year, one of the themes for the next year. So we would like to go into little deeper into the process of effective management for Natura 2000 sites, but also for other protected areas. So this will be our topic, and I believe that the topic is interesting for, as I said, for those of you who are already familiar with Natura 2000 sites, for those of you who are preparing your inventory of potential Natura 2000 sites. So this is in the countries that are not yet members of the European Union. And also, I would say, for those of you who are coming outside European Union or outside Europe, first to learn about this concept of Natura 2000, which definitely proved to be successful for biodiversity conservation in overpopulated Europe. And you can use some of the experiences in your countries. Also, we would like to hear your experiences, so from your countries, to interact those with existing management practices, and perhaps we will also get some good proposals and ideas for, let's say, for Europe. So basically, this is basically it. As I said, I wanted to give you an introduction into the IUCN, into the WCPA, to highlight why do we think that we have a very good expert base to run this academy, and what is then the added value for the participants, but also for lecturers to interact, and then to give you the short introduction on what will be the subject or the topic, one of the topics for the next year in the EPA 2021. So Lisa and Romana, if this is okay, I think we stick to the time that I was given, and hopefully it is okay. Yeah.
Perfect, Andrej. Thank you very much. You were absolutely perfect in time. Now, I hope you have some questions. Please note them, and we will then, after Michael's talk, go into the discussion. If you have questions, please also put them in the chat again, just to remind you there's the chat version if you don't want to put your microphone on in the end. But now, second part of today's webinar, Michael Jungmeier, our professor, our new professor actually, because you've been there now for a couple of months only, I think.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Romana. Thank you, Andrej. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you here in this somehow strange virtual world. When we noticed in April that it will not be possible to have EPA this year, we were significantly disappointed, and we were thinking of alternatives. And the alternative we found is this webinar hosted by E.C.O. and attended by some 25 colleagues from Europe, but also from outside of Europe. I see many of the names familiar to me. It's old friends, new friends. Some of them may be future friends. Welcome very warmly here to Klagenfurt. I have a presentation to share with you. And you shall see it now. Can you see it?
Yes.
Once again, this picture of Lakeside Park, the venue where we would have met if this was a year like all the other years. It's a picture of a sunset, definitely yes. However, I want to once again warmly welcome you here. I want to provide you with some in-depth information on one of the seminars of next year, and this is the seminar on the economic values of Natura 2000 sites. Andrej already mentioned this tremendous system of Natura 2000 covering all Europe and having more than 28,000 sites. It's really incredible. More than 28,000 sites in all these different countries with all the different legislation, with all the different natural assets and natural situations. It's really an exciting network that has been developed in the last years. And this network, of course, has significant economic aspects as well. If you think on the future, it's the European biodiversity strategy indicating that in only 10 years we want to have 30% of Europe as under the regime of Natura 2000. That means every third square meter that you walk on would be somehow in this network. So it's really a big, big vision. And this has also economic consequences and opportunities. And this is what we would like to talk about in this seminar today a little bit, and next summer more in detail. I will show you where we are once again, talking about the Lakeside Park with a very specific situation, and that is that here in the park we have these technology-based companies. We have a large university, and we have in a system called EduLab, we have 9 schools here in this campus. And on the same area, only some 5, 10, 20 meters away, we have a Natura 2000 site. And in this Natura 2000 site, we have all the conflicts on a teeny scale that we also see in Europe. And we have been managing this site. So the E.C.O. company has been managing this site for 9 years now. So we are deeply involved in all these discussions. And when we can invite you to be in Klagenfurt, as many of you already did, you know that we always use this area as a test site, as a demonstration site, where we also can have our excursions and our test site for different devices and methods. In the seminar, you can expect different aspects. One was already highlighted a little bit, not in depth, but in a very broad sense. And this is the question, what is so exciting about the concept of Natura 2000? And it's not only the fact that it's a concept that covers a whole continent, more or less, a really large scale, but also in many technical aspects, it's really a clever instrument. It's really clever. It does not work all the times. Like all clever instruments, they may have difficulties in the setup, they may have difficulties in performance, but it's very cleverly designed. And we have quite some voices in Europe who anticipated that this system might be successful, and they started a lot of complaints at a very early stage, and in some cases and in some questions, they had been quite successful in ruining the brand, this brilliant brand of Natura 2000. And one of the questions was that it would harm somehow economic development. And in that context, we want to put our seminar demonstrating that there is, of course, some technical considerations and some technical needs for adaptation of land uses, for example. But on the other hand, we have really quite interesting, if not exciting, economic potentials. And this is what we would like to share with you. Of course, when talking about economy, it's similar to talking about ecology. You need to have at least some framework where you can have an orientation in. And for that, we would like to share with you some of the instruments to measure economic impacts. Because it is one thing to complain and to discuss, but it is another thing to have really valid figures, to have an evidence of real effects. And we want to have a short look into these instruments, and I will show you on the next slide one of these tools. We want to summarize in the seminar what we already know about the economy of Natura 2000. As Andrej said, this network is based on two large European directives that have been in place quite a long time, and it took some time to implement all the system, but we had almost 3 decades also to learn about the economic aspects of this network. And then is the question that is particularly addressed to all managers of the sites. What measures can I do in my site to enhance the economic effect? So not only to avoid negative effects if they occur, but also how to really enhance on the positive side the economic aspects. This instrument that we would like to talk about is not specifically to be used for Natura 2000 sites. You can also use it for other types of conservation areas, so it works independently from the category that you have selected. And we will have a look on these instruments. On one hand, we have this framework provided by IUCN, which is under the headline income generating opportunities. So where to generate income for, on one hand, for the park management, which in many cases, or for the Natura 2000 management, which in many cases is very much interlinked with the regional systems. And on the other hand, also to how to generate income opportunities for stakeholders, for landowners, for entrepreneurs in the area. We want to support you in mapping the potential of your specific site. I'll show the instrument later on. So we would invite you to come to EPA next year with a specific site or with a specific region with some sites in there, so that we can work specifically and not on a very general level. You know that in EPA we have very small groups, so we have the opportunity to really work specifically on these questions. And then we want to draw a so-called financial portfolio. This is the tool, it is the compass, how you can adjust your economic situation and how you can, how you can select the opportunities of income generation for the park management and for the region as well. And after this, week in Klagenfurt, you shall go home with an individualized action plan for generating income for your site, your stakeholders, and your regions. So you will not go home with a long list of things that you have learned. You fall asleep and you forget about it. No, you shall go home with a map or with an action plan that you really can implement if you want and if you can, but the tool would be in place. This is what we want to do. And don't be scared when you see the next slide. Just relax, don't be scared. Look at this. This is what economists do. I'm ecologist, you know, but I was at the Institute of Macroeconomics for 9 years, and we did stuff like these calculations of calculations and meta calculations and things you don't really understand. But, and this is important, we want to show you some examples that really have been calculated on the basis of hard facts. What is the impact of Natura 2000? And I know that this slide is too tiny to be read. This was the idea. We cannot go into depth today, but I just want to show you on the left side, there is the technical process. And on the right side, you see some graphs. Don't be interested in the individual figures, but this was a calculation done for Austria, for model sites in Austria, based on hard economic facts. We could go into depth, maybe more into deep, indicating the effects of Natura 2000 on regional economy. And you see, I think you see my cursor, don't you? You see my cursor? This is the zero line. The vast majority of sites is on the positive side. So when you look at the economy in Austrian Natura 2000 sites, the vast majority is little impact, no impact, but any impact on the positive side. This is what you see. And we have calculated two scenarios, one like rather optimistic and one like pessimistic. And you see that in one case only, there was a pessimistic scenario indicating that there might be a significant loss in economic development. This was linked to some gravel extraction industry in conflict with Natura 2000 and with an insufficient management planning. So in that case, there was at that time, there was really the danger of an economic loss. And what happened is that they adapted the management planning process. And also in this case, this loss has not yet occurred. So generally spoken, whatever people say, whatever they complain, whatever they let you know, Natura 2000 has on the economic level of a region is small, but obviously and evidently proven positive effect on the economic development. We will go more into depth just by some examples so that it's maybe more easy to understand this figure. The main like message of this figure is the positive impact of Natura 2000 in Austria, comparably in other countries of Europe. We don't know all the countries, but for some of the countries, there is also evidence for this. When you look on the site level, once again, we had the question, what is the function and the role of Natura 2000 sites in specific and of protected areas in a more general way. And we had a very exciting projects about Parks 3.0. You see the link. So this book is also available on our homepage. And in a large European process of discussion, we developed some hypotheses on the new protected areas of the 21st century. And here I share with you the hypothesis number 14 and number 15, indicating that in quite some cases, protected areas are becoming or have become promoters and model regions for a green economy that has a strong regional context and encourages entrepreneurship. You wouldn't believe it, but we will see later on. And for me, the exciting thing is that this is some kind of a economy that is connected to people. If you have large investment, if you want to have a large investment, build a big infrastructure, power plant, whatsoever, this does not go so well with protected area, everybody knows. If you want to build a small scale business with a specific product that is connected to persons and that is connected to a place, you have a very good possibility in protected areas. You have very good platforms to do so. And so we somehow argued, believe it or not, maybe you want to contradict, that protected areas somehow represent a counter concept to this investment-driven global economy thing that obviously has some significant problems at the moment anyway. And secondly, we want to highlight that in very different, mainly remote areas, protected areas all over Europe, and as far as I know, all over the world, are usually not in the big cities and in the big centers. They are in the remote areas, they are in the rural areas, and in these areas they can be employers, of course. They can be a trigger or a supporter of innovation. And of course, all these services connected to tourism usually play a significant role. Only 3 examples to illustrate a little bit what is meant. You would find hundreds of examples, and we will try to collect them also in the EPA next year, of course, because some of them are really exciting. This is just a small one. Protected areas in general, Natura 2000 sites in particular, offer very specific opportunities for educational and touristic activities. In this case, this is an acoustic furniture. So it is a bench where you may sit, but it was constructed in a way that it has a resonance body. And Diana, the young lady, she's sitting there, and this acoustic bench is addressed to the river. It's a small river, and somehow all the noises and the sounds of this specific river situation, they get louder in this acoustic bench. And this is just one element where you see, well, nature is so rich and there is so many opportunities to create benefits, for example, for guests, but also such a bench, it needs to be developed, it needs to be constructed, it needs to be maintained, and this is also connected, of course, to an economic effect. You don't pay for sitting at the bench; it's free. But after you sit there for quite a while, you get thirsty and you go to the next cafe and you have either a beer or a Spritz Aperol, whatever you like. So these large economic opportunities connected to tourism, they would never end if you start to properly collect them. And usually they are very site specific. They're very site specific. You cannot just exchange from one site to the other because the sites are not identical. You go to McDonald's, same infrastructure all around the globe. You go to this acoustic bench, this specific acoustic landscape you only hear at this very specific place. So this is one of the opportunities, just one of them. Another one, of course, all of us, we are human beings and we have a biology behind and we like to eat. And for us, eating is not only a question of getting some nutrients, it is also an expression of culture. It is an expression of connecting to a place. And also in this field, we see a lot of new trends emerging that significantly link the thing you eat to the place where you eat it. In protected areas, you have very many examples of really, really rich opportunities. For me, some of the most exciting places, of course, is places where you have on one hand the wild fruit, for example, and on the other hand, you have like the cultivated form, and you would see it in the wild and you eat the cultivated or the other way around. There is many different opportunities connected to food. And we see at the moment in Austria and in Middle Europe, I guess, this slow food movement. So you don't go to eat fast, you eat slow, and you talk and you slowly eat another bite. And also this is some kind of a activity of a consumption pattern, call it, that is very much linked to protected areas and that can be linked and connected to a Natura 2000 site, to a national park, or to a World Heritage site. And the third just example from out of our portfolio, when you have any region, even peripheric regions, you have different types of people who have the potential of inventing something, of having a new idea, of creating a small scale business, of creating today they call it startups. And we want to also in this next year's EPA come up with one example how to organize a startup weekend in the context of nature conservation. We did so, and we were really, really surprised what exciting, unconventional business ideas would come out of such a thing. There is many examples that we want to share with you how to make economic use of a site. The funny thing is, whatever we say about positive effects of protected areas, positive effects of parks, potentials of funding, we know it already. So we don't need to invent anything. You see two pieces of literature from the 2000s, from the years of 2000, and all the income ways are already presented. The problem is, you wouldn't believe it, you have so many opportunities that it's very difficult to select, to decide, because you cannot do everything and you need to properly decide. And for this, we want to work with a tool which we call the financing portfolio. And you will see, and this is the tool that we want to co-develop during the EPA. It's quite simple, but tricky, but clever. On one hand, you collect all the options that you have. We do it in a brainstorming, in a team. We have small teams. We collect all opportunities that you may have on this particular site. Some of these ideas may be not too intelligent. Some of them may be brilliant. Some of them may be not really realistic. We collect them and you put them into this portfolio and you just try to put this instrument on the right place on this figure where you have more or less only two gradients. One is how difficult is it to implement this tool, because some of the tools you can implement very easily. You want to put there a collection box, you just put it there, it's 5 minutes, it's done. We will see how effective it is, but it can be very easy. And on the other hand, you may have very complex financing mechanisms that may be more effective or not. So we have one gradient for these instruments with regards to complexity, and we have one gradient for the impact meaning how much economic impact can I generate. And in this portfolio, jointly, you try to find the perfect position for that. And when discussing that, you see also the possibilities, the problems, the obstacles that may come up. And we have worked with this tool repeatedly, and it usually comes up with really plausible and good and helpful results. And this is the process that we will go through in this week next year. First, and this is not a shame, it's clever to first look what do the other do. So what do we already know that is in place? We might not just copy and paste, but we might just see, we might take it, we might adapt it and maybe copy it even. If it works well, that's fine for us. So we want to see what others do. The trainers in the seminar, they will come up with examples. We will work in a team, in small teams where you have other professionals. All of the Park Academy attendees are professionals with their experience, with their background, and you jointly collect the ideas to generate benefits. As I already said, these ideas may be silly or not. All of them, they get collected and then sorted out later. All of these ideas need a name and a structure. Of course, what is it? Then that is the potential and the difficulty is discussed. And then this idea is placed in the portfolio. It's an exercise of one day. And then you have the whole picture of your site or of your, of more sites in one regions. And then, of course, it's the question to document and describe these opportunities. We will have opportunities and examples to more in depth learn how to do it. So how you really implement it. And that's it. When you go home, you can say, here we go, I'm ready to start. And on the right-hand side, you see what we want you to take home. One is you will get a certificate of attendance by the WCPA, so by the World Commission on Protected Areas. It's a nice certificate. It has rather a memory, it's more a memory than a professional thing, but also of course, it is a professional certificate that you can use in your CV as well. Then you have the take-home result. This is this individual action plan. We want you to go home with a concrete message and a concrete tool. And from this year on, and so in that case from next year on, also you would have the possibility to get an academic degree. So the University of Applied Sciences can issue an academic degree equaling 3 ECTS credits that you can, if you're a student or if you want to be a student in future, that you can use for accreditation at university as well. If you go for ECTS, you need to make an additional seminar work. So you have an additional workload. So you need to compile the results in some kind of a seminar work, and then you get also an academic certificate. Yes, this is what I wanted to more or less share with you, what to expect for next year. I want to close with the final information with regards to 3 educational offers provided by the university, by the Carinthia University of Applied Sciences. One is a very technical qualification as a nature conservation engineer, where you in a 1 year's hand-on training learn how to do practical conservation activities. So how to translocate a population of reptiles or of lizards or of amphibs, or how to prepare nesting places, or how to do the restoration of habitats, but not on a planning level, really on the physical, technical level. The second is the master program we offer. It's the master in the management of conservation areas. It is a professional master, so it is addressed to people who are on job. Therefore, it is a training that has a virtual component and a presence component. You have 60 days of attendance within 2 years here in Klagenfurt. You can learn about the program more on our homepage. And finally, of course, this European Parks Academy is one of these offers. We should be happy. We should be really happy to see you here in Klagenfurt next year, maybe before, but for the EPA next year. And besides the seminar that we will provide on the benefits and on the economic situation for Natura 2000, we will also have other seminars, and Lisa later on will let you know more about this. Thank you very much for your attendance. I don't know if you have fallen asleep or whatever, because I'm just talking in the virtual space, but thanks for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much, Andrej. You get a virtual applause by me. I think by all the others too. Before we start in the discussion, we already have some questions in the chat I saw. Before we start in the discussion, I would just shortly